this is Kate and welcome to the Payoff Podcast. In this episode, Neve and I speak to a very good friend of mine, James Connelly. He has a really impressive story about how he turned his idea into a business at just the right time. James founded Fetch Media in 2009 at just 23 years old, and it quickly grew from a startup being run from his kitchen in London to a leading mobile-first agency. James sold his business to Dentsu Aegis in 2014, and he continued as CEO until leaving the business this year to take a gap year, so he had a bit of time to chat to us and be on the podcast, which we're really excited about. We really enjoyed this chat and we hope you do too.
Hello.
Hi, James.
Yeah, how you doing, KB?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. I feel like I'm on BBC Radio 1 being interviewed on Drive Time.
Well, surprise, you're live on BBC One. So welcome to the podcast, James. This is Kate speaking, and we have Neve here as well. Hey there.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Neve.
Neve and I are actually having a beer right now, but it's actually 8 o'clock in the morning for you because you're in London. So hopefully you're on the coffee unless you have a drinking problem.
Yeah, no, I certainly have to stomach a beer right now. But the coffee's going down just fine.
So thanks for taking the time to chat to us. You're our very first international guest, and we're pretty excited. Neve and I decided to do this podcast a while ago, and I instantly thought of you because when we first met in London, you were in the process of selling your business, which you began building at the age of 23, I think.
I sure did.
So I thought this would be a good opportunity to ask a few questions about that.
So I guess I'll jump in and ask you the first question, James. So I'm sure our listeners would love to know a little bit about your background and how you came to start your business, Fetch.
Okay, well, firstly, thanks so much for having me on. This is always good fun, and hopefully I can share some fun stories about what I've been doing over the last 10 years or so. But yeah, Kate, as Kate said, started Fetch when I was 23, so hadn't been to business school. I hadn't actually even been to university. So my only education really, and kind of ironically, was I moved to Sydney, of all places, to work for a mobile content business. And it was a really small company. It was 5 people. And so I got to see for about a year how a really small entrepreneurial company ticks. And I learned a lot in that year. And so that was kind of my vocation. So I came back to London at 23. This was in the period in which, so this was 2009, and the iPhone first came out in 2007 in the US. And they only launched it in the US to see how it would go. Nobody knew how successful it would be. And then as it absolutely flew off the shelves, they started launching it in other markets. And I saw the iPhone. I created a technology-based agency focused on mobile. I'm not a big tech person, if I'm completely honest. I probably hid that for a while, but
hit it pretty well, obviously.
Yeah, but it's just not my bag. I'm not even into the latest gadgets. In some respects, I am. But I remember that in my 22-year-old self. Became a little bit obsessed with this iPhone that I kept reading about because I genuinely thought, wow, this is actually really game changing, and I was quite interested by it. And so I got my hands on an iPhone from the US and got it shipped. I probably spent all of my disposable income for that month or that year, probably at that time, on getting one of these iPhones and getting it over to the US, getting over to the UK. And I was obsessed with it, and I thought this could really change the world. And so that was probably how the acorn of the idea for Fetch came about. And so started Fetch. The shorter version is I went into, after trying to get it working on my own in my kitchen in a small village in Surrey in England, I decided that I needed a grown-up around me. And so I got myself a co-founder who had built a small agency before, and we kind of went at it together. And the original idea of Fetch was basically to copy the advertising agency model. So obviously big advertising agencies and small advertising agencies had operated for years and years and years, decades, on working with large clients to either typically do two things: one, create ads, or two, buy them. And we thought, right, we'll do both. We'll create ads, we'll buy them, but we're going to do them for big brands on mobile, because everybody's going to, all the customers, all the consumers or humans, whatever, however you want to class the 7 billion people that there are across the world, they're all going to shift their media consumption habits from watching TV to being on their phone. That's what I thought in 2009. And actually, ironically, it took probably about 10 years for that actually to happen. But it did happen. And then I thought, right, okay, all of these advertisers, Coca-Cola, P&G, Unilever, all of the larger brands that we all know who spend millions, well, actually billions globally, on traditional advertising, they're going to suddenly go, yeah, we need to spend all our money on mobile. And, we were wildly unsuccessful because it didn't really work like that. Even now, even if you look at the amount of money that a Unilever or a Procter & Gamble invests on TV versus it invests on something like mobile, which is, as we all know, the biggest platform now globally, it's actually quite small. So, after 6 to 9 months of trying to figure that out and realising that actually lots of people wanted to meet us, which felt pretty good, because, when you're in your kitchen or there's just two of you and a big brand wants to have a meeting with you at age 23, you go, God, we're doing something right. But they just didn't want to pay us any money. So we had to have a think about how we can pivot, should we say. And at the time, apps were interesting because they were quite small. And legend has it that Steve Jobs didn't really believe in apps in the first iteration of the iPhone. And Johnny Ive, the main designer of the iPhone, was really insistent on having a closed wall ecosystem, which became the App Store and the apps. And so fast forward a bit, we thought, right, let's have a look at these apps, because these are starting to become interesting. And the first big app in the UK, at least, do you guys remember like the first app you had on your phone?
Oh God, I think it was like some chat thing. This sounds kind of bizarre, but I think it was like something that you could like talk to randomers, which
classic me.
It was classic me. It's like 16 or something like that, cool. 16, 17.
Talk to animals, did you say?
Talk to randomers. So
I'll talk to randomers.
Yeah, I think it was like cool. Primitive version of like a Tinder or something like that, or a chat roulette. It's before it got gross.
Oh, right. Yeah, you went in the deep end. Yeah. Well, the first app I had was called iPint. And basically, it came to the top of the iTunes store, at least in the UK. I mean, we do love beer here in the UK. And it was simulating you drinking a pint of lager. So you used the phone a bit, and this was groundbreaking innovation.
We have come a long way.
And we certainly have. We've come a long way. So in that era of apps, we thought, right, okay, let's see if we can carve ourselves out a niche here and understand it. And, we weren't the only company by any stretch. In fact, any digital-based business or agency were looking at apps. And whilst everybody turned left and started thinking about how can we build a really cool app, we turned right and thought, right, how can we make a business out of companies that build apps? How can we help them market them, promote them, get new customers? What you might refer to these days as growth marketing, but focus purely on apps. And so we just doubled down for about 6 to 12 months on understanding the ecosystem. We started to understand how the algorithms in the app stores would work, similar to how SEO companies look at search on Google. And we hired some smart creative and strategy people, and we just got a bit of momentum. We won a few small clients who were purely app-based. And then we kind of rode with the app market, and larger companies started to launch, like the Ubers of the world, who were a customer of ours, and Instagram, which is a customer of ours, and then your larger, already established businesses that had either a digital presence or a traditional retail presence would go, yeah, we need to be on mobile. Expedia, Hotels.com, we help them launch their apps. And app-based marketing is reasonably borderless, and so internationally speaking. So our customers will say, right, we've done a really good job here in the UK. What can you do in the US, and what can you do in Asia, and what can you do in South America? So we grew internationally, launching markets really off the demand of our customers. And so that's kind of how Fetch started and got off the runway.
That sounds like you kind of had a good combination of like bravery to sort of challenge and take on new frontiers, and also know when to change a strategy and try different things. That's, I bet, probably pretty inspiring for anybody else out there who's looking to start their own business. Yeah,
well, in retrospectively, I was 23. I had nothing to lose. I didn't even look at it that way. I just thought, of course I'm going to do this, and if it's not working, try something else. But I suppose that's the lesson. I'm involved in other businesses, and you always try and take lessons from your past. And I think, being a good blend of being persistent and not giving up at the first, second, third, or any hurdle really, but also understanding when you need to change something and try something new, I think was a big learning for me.
Did you feel, obviously at the start you had this big idea, did you have a bit of pushback at the start from companies that didn't really think that it was going to kick off the ground?
Well, a lot of, not our customers. Our customers did need persuading because it was a totally new domain. So they'd never done mobile marketing really. They'd certainly never promoted an app. So we did need to convince people, and we'd often do that by saying, look, let's start with a small test. I won't say which customer, but a large customer of ours, their first campaign with us, and we were properly established at this point, this was probably sort of 4 or 5 years in, we were probably doing over 100 million turnover at that point. They spent, our first campaign with them for a month was 100,000. And we, because everything is real time, we can show them practically on a daily basis, or at least near time, how well their campaigns are performing. Are they acquiring new customers? Are people downloading their app? Are they moving the needle on their marketing goals? And within about, I think, 6 or 12 months, they were spending over 10 million a month with us. So they would start small often, prove that we were doing a good job, prove that mobile marketing worked for them, and then they probably need to prove internally to their main budget holders, be it the CMO or the CFO or even the CEO, that this is a worthwhile channel of investing in, and then it would fly. The brand that we first went to see, the McDonald's and the P&Gs, they didn't need convincing that mobile was big, but they definitely needed convincing because it's taken 10 years to start shifting spend. And we weren't going to be, little old Fetch back then, weren't going to be the guys that were going to change these multi-billion pound or dollar organisations' mind on how to invest. So we just moved on. And in fact, I proudly would talk about, we turned Unilever down 3 times. No offense to Unilever, but it almost became like a bit of a rally call inside of the business. We'd proudly tell people internally and externally we turned Unilever down 3 times because we just knew that they weren't going to invest. They won't have the same motivation and investment and belief in what we were doing as an app-based business or a business that relied heavily on their app, like a Facebook.
Mm. You mentioned that you didn't really have any formal education before you decided to jump into this, James. Like, do you think it was more you knew how to surround yourself with the right people, or did you sort of educate yourself about this on the fly?
Well, look, I just don't think I don't think there is any real linear connection between having a formal education and starting a business. There just isn't. It's all about, you can't prepare yourself for the experience of starting a business. And I really do think that the majority skills required, or if you're going to go down a successful path. A lot of it is intuitive, and perhaps, I don't know, perhaps some people are more intuitive on these types of things than others, and perhaps that's what makes some people entrepreneurial and perhaps not others. Not exclusively, but so I don't think that those things are connected. And no, I didn't really do. I didn't really. There was nothing in particular that I did. I think that having a bit of experience in other smaller companies was far more useful to me than had I gone to university. Being close to an MD or a CEO and actually watching him or her, run the business, that was invaluable.
That's really interesting, good to know, and kind of goes against a lot of what you're, I guess, told about how you're supposed to approach business and educating yourself. So that's pretty cool.
Well, but I would say that if you were to look at any of the large multi-billion-dollar companies in the world, your Facebooks and your Amazons, a lot of the CEOs of those huge, mega successful businesses are Ivy League grads who started the business, Stanford or Yale. So it completely, I suppose you can't look at starting a business just under one lens, and lots of different backgrounds can lend itself to starting a business. But I suppose my biggest point would be you absolutely don't need to have a formal education to start a business. I'm utterly convinced on that. But if the data shows that the most successful, largest global businesses are that those individuals did go to the big Ivy Leagues. But you've probably read it. There's a good book by Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, that looks retrospectively at the data around successful people, and he covers a little bit about this. So if it's of interest, that's the book to read.
I haven't actually read the book, but I've listened to his podcast on that specific thing. So yeah, it is quite interesting around he did a podcast episode on how people hire law grads, and whether hiring somebody who's Ivy League led to getting a better person for the position. So yeah, no, I would sort of agree with Malcolm Gladwell's ideas about that.
My favourite theory that Malcolm Gladwell talks about, I don't think it's actually his, is the whole 10,000 hour theory of you do anything for 10,000 if you become professional. So I mean, if people are planning their career for the future and they think about that, what do they want to be professional in? And then if you break down 10,000 hours into how many years of work do I need to do, then you start to think about how you can build expertise in careers without having to necessarily go down any formal educational route.
Yeah, I guess
optimizing career path.
When you break it down, it's like what is uni? It's practice for a role in the future. But if you're getting that in real time out in the world, then is that equal, or you know what I mean? It's equally as good, I'm actually at the moment on a gap year. I'm giving myself an adult gap year. And so I'm trying to do 10,000 hours of golf and tennis, and it's really not working. I'm still shit. Have you heard Malcolm Gladwell's theory about CEOs that play golf?
No, I haven't. That's no doubt.
You might want to rethink your 10,000 hours of golf after this podcast, because Malcolm Gladwell has a podcast episode about CEOs who play golf and the correlation between failing businesses in the States and CEOs who play golf.
Oh my goodness. All right, I'll take the tennis.
James, you probably didn't have time to play golf though, right? Before your gap year.
Well, no, I used to play quite a bit. To be honest, not at the beginning, not when we were getting off the ground. So maybe that will correlate. But no, the plan is 10,000 hours of tennis, and I'll be in the US Open in 5 years' time. That's my goal.
Apart from your sports dreams, why else did you decide to have a gap year?
Good question. Why did I decide to have a gap? I think I always had. I'm somebody who's driven by goals, and I've been off work now for I don't know how long, maybe 6 months, And there's one thing that I've got from this time off is it's a lot. You get a huge amount of time to think about yourself and how you operate and how you act, which I think is incredibly valuable. That wasn't necessarily why I wanted to take the time off at all. I wanted to just have fun for the year and not go to work. But for me, I've learned that I'm definitely goal driven. And my first goal, and I'm fairly ashamed to admit this, but my goal in the earlier years was, well, firstly, to be my own boss, which is totally cool. Secondly, to build something successful. Yeah, that's cool too. But thirdly, it was reasonably financially driven. You know, I wanted to reach, and I certainly wouldn't vocalize this, but retrospectively, I look back and I'm very open about it. You know, I wanted to reach, let's call it financial security, and that drove me. And as time went on, and I realised, you know, I was starting with building Fetch into a good sized business way before we sold it, and we were quite profitable and making money. You start going, okay, well, actually, what is that still the goal? And I realised that actually the goal was less about money and it was more about time and being able to choose exactly how you spend your time. And even though I loved building a business and flying around the world, and it was a crazy 10 years, you know, is that how I wanted to spend my, you know, every hour of the day or the hours I spent on work? And so I then started becoming obsessed almost with taking some time off, and I would only ever do it. And basically taking a long period of time off where I could choose never to go back to work. I could go and work in I could do anything really. That's what that was my goal. But then interesting things would keep me engaged, and you know, I went on. I'm sure we'll talk a bit about when I sold Fetch to Dentsu, and I did some work with them, and that was quite interesting. I was learning, and then the moment came where I thought, right, now's the time. And I think that's what really motivated me to sort of capitalise on the goal that I'd set out on. And then ironically, after about 2 or 3 months, I was depressed and found it horrendous. And I was like, right, let's go back to work.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I don't know what it's like to have a gap year at age 30, but I can imagine that you would want to try and fill your time with enjoyable things. I think, so you touched on the point when you sold to Dentsu, and like how you knew it was the right time, and what made you decide that it was the right time to sell?
Yeah, that's another good question. Well, I guess nobody really knows if it was the right time to sell or not, but we certainly don't regret anything. But when you're selling a business, there's a few key ingredients I think you want. One is you want competitive tension, so you want more than one acquirer to be at the table. And at that time, you know, we were making a name for ourselves, and we were growing quite quickly, and we were in and out of all the press, and we had all of the major holding companies, so your Publicis, WPP, Dentsu, Omnicom, everybody was talking to us, even though we weren't for sale. And so we thought, okay, competitive tension, tick, that we've definitely got that. Then we had the other two things would be you need to reach a certain point in life as a company where you've got the financial track record and you're having a strong year, because that's probably what you're going to get valued off, certainly at the beginning. And then you want to make sure your house is in order, you're physically able to sell, i.e., you know, when you go through financial and legal due diligence and all the other due diligence you go through, you're actually, you know, a company that's worthwhile buying. And we had that, and then the third, with a bit of work, and then the third thing was momentum. And certainly if you're selling early, and look, every sale of a business is different, and there's so many different deal structures, but largely you could probably apply this to 90% of deals. And the third thing is momentum. So can you continue with the growth that you've been delivering either at the same rate or at least an above market rate? Because A, that makes you more attractive, that helps with valuations, and B, if you're going to go into an earn-out, which we did, and most companies have, I'd say a large majority of companies have some sort of management incentive to deliver the business post-sale. You want to know that you can deliver a growing business. And so we had all those three things. Timing was good, so we went for it.
Yeah,
Could we have gone a bit later? Maybe. But, it worked out well again.
Sounds like you're really sort of knowledgeable about how you should be, like which business moves you should be making and when. Like, how did you go about sort of staying educated about that stuff? Did you have a mentor, or are you just interested in sort of learning about this kind of thing?
I'm interested in business. I realised that I was running an advertising digital tech business, call it what you want, but it was at the coalface of emerging consumer technology internet businesses. But what I realised, and I was interested in that, but what I realised I was truly passionate about is business of all shapes and all sizes, and that's just what makes me tick. A bit like playing tennis or playing golf, which I've now have to give in over this podcast. Yeah, I need to rearrange my plans for the rest of the day. Business is interesting. I'll read it in the papers. It doesn't seem like a chore to me. I'm just, when I'm in a restaurant or pretty much anywhere, I'll be trying to work out the economics of that business. And that's just how my brain ticks. Maybe, and I've been like that since I was, a teenager. My dad actually, found a book that I used to have very recently. It was my little book of ideas when I was a young teenager. I had this book where I'd write down ideas because I was convinced I was going to set up a business. They were all terrible, but I had it, and so I've always been semi-obsessed with business. Totally forgot my question, but maybe I've given you the answer.
No, you've definitely given us the answer. It was just about sort of like what drives you and what drives your curiosity, and is it learned from other people or is self-driven? And it sounds like it's very much like a self-driven and innate thing to you. So me and Kate have no chance.
Well, no, not necessarily, but so it's self-driven to want to know about business because I have a passion and an interest in it. But how do I actually learn about this? I've always put myself around people who know more than me. That's been my number one thing. So in the early days of throughout the whole of Fetch, I created a board probably much sooner than a younger startup would do. I had non-execs. I'd give them free equity to get advice. And I've always put myself in a learning position. I don't know if I've done it subconsciously, or sort of more intentionally, because I didn't go to university, because that was always a thing for me, because my parents expected me to go to university. Everybody in my school went to university, and I wonder if I've always thought, I'm going to prove that I can learn in a different way. And funnily enough, I was pushing my kids to go to university. But that's what I did. So I put myself around smart people, smarter than me, more knowledgeable than me, more experienced than me, and good company rubs off and you learn. Yeah,
true. Very true. Well, thanks for the tips. We'll be trying to hang out with you more then, James.
I don't know about that. I'll probably give you all my knowledge in about 10 minutes.
I suppose I'd quite like to know, so Fetch has obviously been extremely successful and your story is very impressive. What do you think was unique about the approach that you took that fueled this success?
That's a good question. I think, let's be honest, Fetch has been incredibly successful, but there's a large part of that which does come down to luck and timing, and this isn't like a humble brag. I mean, it really is. We could have come up with the same idea and done the same thing 5 years earlier, and it would have been too early, and we wouldn't be in business. And we could have also done it 5 years later, and we would have just been yet another company doing, app marketing. So I think timing has, a big part to play. But we were super competitive, and I think you can't compare yourself to all businesses, but you can compare yourself to the businesses that were near us, be it competitors or semi-competitors, i.e. businesses in the same space that you might not go head to head with them. And I think we're away, and the companies that I'm involved in, I try and encourage this. And it could be a personal thing. It works for us. It might not work for everybody. But, I looked at it as a sports game. And I looked at it as we're going to win. Not we're going to be the best, because of course we want to be the best, but no, we're going to win, as in we're going to beat you. And it motivates your people. Believe it or not, if you really try and win, you tend to win more than you lose. And sorry, someone's trying to call me. Let me end and accept. No, decline. There we go. I could have gone.
Get him on, join the podcast if you might have some inspiring business ideas.
Just putting the podcast on hold whilst I take this. Probably a delivery phone call. So creating that mindset of win, and I'm friendly with my competitors, certainly now actually when I'm not competing with them. But so it's all in good. That's why I call it sport. It's all, you can shake your hands at the end of the game, but really having your sights on winning, I think is super valuable. And that's what we did. And I would obsessive. I don't know if I'd do this again. It's interesting. Maybe because I was a bit younger. Maybe I had more to lose. I'd less to lose, but more to gain. So I was more intense. But I was almost a stalker. I want to know everything about my competition, literally everything. Anything in the public I'd know. And as I say, a sports team would know their competition inside out. And so I think that for me was maybe unique about us, maybe not, but we had the best win record in our market. And I do think that was down to our attitude.
That's awesome. I'm loving this winning attitude sport theme you've got going on. Now, with success, there's always a lot of challenges as well. We've touched a lot on your success, but I'm sure there were a lot of challenges as well along the way. So can you think of any that in particular stuck with you as a real ball ache?
The old ball ache. No, it was easy. The whole thing was just a piece of cake, really. This whole challenge thing is a myth. Let's see. I mean, ultimately, it's so hackneyed now, this saying, but the whole fail fast type attitude, we semi-embraced. We knew that I think most things don't work, right? And if you're okay with that in business, most new ideas don't actually work. Maybe they tick along, maybe they do okay. There's only probably 10%. I'm totally making this up, but this isn't based on lots of data that I've been compiling. But the number that comes ahead is 10%, and it does match startup failure, 90% fail in the first year. So 10% of good ideas actually become good businesses and work. And so if you're okay with that, and you know when to kill things and to move on and to accept failure, then it's really healthy in a business. So we would try lots of new things, particularly me, and I'd drive everybody up the wall around the company. So we go, oh God, what are we doing now? And 9 times out of 10 it didn't work, but every now and then we'd stumble upon something which really worked, it was really successful, we'd grow, and it would help us grow. But along the way, when you're doing lots of new things and you're growing, you're hiring new people, you grow quickly, and you can really come across a lot of challenges. Hiring people in new markets, I've always found really difficult because the culture of business and the culture of people in new cities, new countries, new continents can really change the success you have in hiring people. And we learned the hard way. I remember hiring our first, I'm highly unlikely he's going to ever listen to this, so
Thanks, James. You could be listening. You don't know our reach.
That last comment says less about your podcast and more about this particular individual. But we hired our first US sort of president who lasted 3 months, and it was an absolute disaster. And it was just getting used to how you hire people in new markets, particularly in senior positions. I mean, that for us, of course, we didn't get that right a couple of times. The challenges were endless. But I think entrepreneurial people, unless the challenge is really super stressful. I mean, we had a major lawsuit with a huge customer of ours, and that was probably our biggest challenge, because it was totally new domain. It was big stakes. It was on top of the day job. It was a stressful situation, and I learned a huge amount from that. Unfortunately, it was all resolved, but it did take about 18 months or 2 years. But you just have to have an attitude to challenges, and entrepreneurial people, I think, and entrepreneurial organisations tend to be successful because they like problem solving. And so if you can embrace challenges for what they are and have a positive attitude to it, then I think that it's just a healthy course of business.
Awesome. So you kind of mentioned a few times about being an entrepreneurial type of person and always sort of having that in your blood and your attitude. For somebody who maybe isn't, that doesn't come as naturally to, do you think that can be learned? And if so, do you have any advice from somebody who may be listening to this, wanting to start their own business and is thinking, God, I don't have that naturally in me? Yeah,
it's really simple. I hope you don't mind expletives, but just fucking do it. That's all you got to do. Honestly, I meet so many people, and the only real difference is someone just gets on and does it. I've got the amount of people around me who are smarter, better ideas, more experienced, but they just won't get on and do it. That is the biggest single difference, I think. And so it doesn't have to be the world's best. If I'm going to do another business at some stage where in some shape or size, I don't know yet, but once the year's up, I'll start thinking about it properly. But if I hang around and wait for the best idea, it will be 25 years until I start this business. So at some stage, I'm just going to go JSDI, just fucking do it.
Yeah,
and that would be my one piece of advice. And you know what? Most businesses, when they start, they don't work. And people who are, back to my earlier point, persistent and that are willing to pivot and find something that works, will set the business in a direction where finally you get a bit of traction. So I was trying to think of like really successful businesses that. We look at Amazon. A slightly different example. There's a brilliant picture on the internet, you've probably seen it, of Jeff Bezos in his very first Amazon office, which is like a really crap shed where he's got an office for one person, and he's got a flag of the original Amazon logo, the whole A to Z. And it was, an online bookstore, and that actually happened to be successful, maybe not in its first iteration, but you start somewhere and you end up somewhere completely different, I suppose is the point. But just get on with it. That's my advice.
Just push through.
Yeah, I think you're right. It kind of comes down to not getting on with it, and also maybe a confidence thing. But I suppose if you're willing to accept that it probably won't go right the first time round and just keep going, then that's a good attitude to have.
I wonder about that a lot, actually. Yeah. Like how much of people who are successful, is it just about believing that they should be in a certain place in the world?
I definitely believe it is. Yeah. It's a mindset thing. But I think everyone can adopt that.
This is where I would agree that, you do need to have the confidence. Like most things, I don't think there's any sports player in the world who lacks confidence in themselves. And so working on building confidence is totally important. And maybe some individuals are a bit more confident than others. Well, they are, we know that. But it doesn't stop it doesn't stop you from everybody still has the same opportunity to just jump in the deep end. You just got to push yourself, and actually understanding that. And this is where there is a massive caveat, because you need to be in a situation where you can accept that things will fail and be okay with it. And I mean that emotionally. Emotionally, you need to prepare yourself that things could not work and know that you gave it a good crack and it's not the end of the world. That's quite difficult. But probably more importantly, particularly for perhaps people who want to start a business and they've already got a family and big responsibilities or any type of responsibility really that's financially based, you need to know that you can take that risk and it might not work out. So don't get me wrong, it's not easy, it's not straightforward for everybody. And again, it comes back to timing. It might be that you've got to find yourself in a situation where you work towards giving yourself that freedom emotionally and financially to take a punt. But just getting off the fence, as they say, and giving it a go is the single biggest difference to starting a business and not starting a business. And I know it sounds so obvious, but yeah, I think to a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and I think I've heard that before, so it's a common theme.
Great. Thanks for that, James.
Yeah, I like how you've referenced it to sport again, James. I feel like this might be the theme of this episode.
Sport episode.
Winning.
The kicking goals episode.
Yeah.
You also lifted your catchphrase from a well-known sporting company, just fucking do it. I believe Nike probably had a claim on that before.
There are other sports brands available.
No. That's my catchphrase. I don't think they have that.
It's a swoosh going the other way.
You're used to lawsuits, James, but we're not.
The Nike book's quite a good read, actually. The Shoe Dog.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
That is it's good. It's right back from the early days before Nike was even Nike. That's a really good read.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
Thanks for the tip. Well, James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us. To finish off, do you want to let everybody know where people can find you on social or anything like that?
Yeah, all 750 followers. It's pretty big time. But yeah, I am on Instagram. That's probably the only thing I use. I do have Twitter and stuff, but I just never use it, to be honest. I am James Connelly, Connelly. God, maybe if I had a shorter handle, then I could be Insta famous. I just need like a JC, although I have a feeling that might be taken.
I don't know if that's the reason you're not Insta famous, James.
No, I'm fairly convinced that is the only reason that I'm not Insta famous.
Well, we'll leave it at that then.
Thanks a million, James. It was awesome talking to you.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Really, really good fun.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a fantastic rest of your morning. Will do.
Thanks, James. Bye.
All right. Bye.
This is Niamh.
And this is Kate. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, why don't you share it with a friend?
And if you really liked it, subscribe and give us a rating.
If you want to find out more about KeyPay, go to keypay.com.
See you next time.